intelligence built into the software development pipelines and environment.
Yes.
So when we talk about building intelligence, where do we really start? Like I had few main things which become challenges for us in the traditional way of working. But I wanted to know from you first, like where do we start with respect to building intelligence, given that, of course, that we have DevOps in play already in our environments.
So yeah, so if you see the whole software supply chain or the full DevOps cycle, there are multiple places which are the you know which have a challenge statement everywhere. Like for example, SCA tools, right? So SCA tools they throw a lot of vulnerabilities, and then now these talks are happening where there are solutions which are offering reachability analysis. They are saying, are you seriously using those dependency or not? If it is not, then there is no need to consider those alerts. So for the people who are looking for, make the overall thing smarter, I think the very first point they can start with making sure that the developers get the right education, they understand the vulnerabilities, they understand the vulnerable code, and also the AI powered solution, which basically can help them to fix the code timely and efficiently. That is that will save a lot of hours of developer hours. So that is something easy to adopt, because you just see there are two ways of doing it. One is like you use the closed source uh, models, and then you take the input from there and then give that intelligence to the developers. Another is like, if you have the bandwidth, you can sort of use some open source LLMs and then train with the data what you have in your enterprise or in your companies, and then create that. But I think that could be the starting point. Then from there you can work on your false positives, you can work on their dependency problems, you can work on build security, any kind of anomaly happening. So it's like multiple places in the software supply chain, starting from your coding to build to test to deployment. So all that has multiple problems, but I would say not to go behind AI for everything, but start with something very basic which has a bigger impact, and then reverse engineer from there, and then come to the places. Till you can also, like, you can build an IDE, you can have it in your developer IDE platform, have a plugin which can sort of get the intelligence from things. But yeah, again, it's a different levels of maturity. So yeah.
So, in terms of prioritization, maybe that is something I see as the initial part, right? Because there may be 100 different problem statements that you have. You may have recurring kind of issues as well. For example, false positive is more on the operational side of the tools that you may be using for SAST or DAST or other things, but you may have priorities with respect to what kind of vulnerabilities or what kind of areas that you want to look at. So, is there a way of prioritizing this before we start solving for it using intelligence?
Yes. So that is one area where we have been working for last 1.5 years. So uh, once we get the business context of the applications which is under scan, and we also get the kind of vulnerabilities it is throwing, and what are the different technologies it is built on, and what is the overall coverage of different kind of vulnerabilities which is there, like whether how strong is the technology basically. So different kind of context if we supply, it is possible to train the models to bring some sort of prioritization to it. So you can like put in multiple parameters like CDSS, or which is powered by of course EPSS today, and you can also put some business context to it, like how critical business criticality it holds. Then what is the kind of support available to address to the problems, like for example how many developers are involved, how many security professionals are involved. So there could be multiple contexts which you can supply and come to a prioritized list of things to look at. So that really helps a lot, because throwing like hundreds and hundreds of issues to developers is like it's counterproductive. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, so there are some specific areas that that you will see do become may become priorities for many of us. So, for example, I was just talking about, I'll start with some specific things. Like, for example, false positives for all the traditional tools that we have in the area of application security, particularly. False positives are a big deal because they are huge in number.
Yeah.
And many times when you sit down to look at, is it really applicable? Is it really exploitable? You understand that it is not, those issues are not, and then they have already taken up a lot of developer time by then.
Yeah.
So, can we use intelligence, or how can we exactly use intelligence to deal with false positives?
Correct. So what we have done is like we used vulnerability data which was generated by our team, and we created some models which we start training with that vulnerability data. So it's the data of multiple scanners, multiple SaaS tools, multiple dash tools, and then we found that there is fair level of reduction of false positive possible with this kind of approach. But every organization doesn't have that luxury to have access to that kind of data and create their own model, because it brings a lot of overheads. Like you should have a machine learning engineers with you to create that kind of thing. So I would suggest to better go for a third party AI and generative AI, where it can sort of walk through the code and sort of once you have put the findings there, it can sort of alert you saying that hey, there could be a false positive there. So that is one approach of doing it. But the proper way is the first way, which we try doing, and but of course it takes a lot of effort from your side. There should be engineering team available to achieve that. At the same time, there is a cost involved, there is a infrastructure cost involved. So uh, that is there. So for the starting point, I think, especially with the level of SMBs or SMEs, I think you can rely on some third-party tools and third-party AI solutions for your